Okay, so today I'm going to share with you my reflection for week 6. This week in Ada and Campo's unit 5, it focuses on the power of transformation. As this unit mentions, transformation is necessary, but I do believe you can't really get anywhere without transforming yourself or developing yourself, especially us who are continuing our education. We're constantly developing and learning and taking things in, but I don't think none of us are who we were even a few years back. So, for example, technology is one way that the world is transforming, and if we don't keep up with technology as we know, we will fall behind. Not severely. I mean, I think just being involved with it. Like my son, who is 11, knows a lot about technology. I am actually very savvy in technology, but he knows things I don't even know. So that's what I mean as far as like technology is concerned. However, as the book discusses social evils, like as far as war, violence, racism, poverty, people make excuses for, I believe a lot of the excuses could be taught to us. They're related to our environment, our backgrounds, and our upbringings. So being socially accepted must be really difficult for those who immigrate from a different country because I have a problem even having or being accepted in social um, environments or being proper all the time. So I can imagine how difficult it must be for them, especially speaking a different language and having to be socially accepted here. Using a story, The Kingdom of Geometry, I think is a great way for teachers to facilitate the dialogue about issues such as inferiority and also how bias is taught. Because in that story, this guy comes in, or the triangle comes in, or square, and starts telling them how everybody should be a square. So I think the king didn't have that in him. And then as it was developed, or they were teaching him that it should be that way, so then everything became that way. I think a great follow up assignment would be to read book 21 as a class. I chose that book because I think having them discuss how they can make the world a better place would allow them to develop a solution as a community or as a class. Tabor's chapter 5 discusses individual differences in second language learning. It reviews the cognitive and social factors of language acquisitions and how they interact together. This chapter also reviews the strategies needed for second language students to develop their abilities. These strategies include joining a group of students who speak a second language, relating objects and the language, and moving away from formulaic phrases. The chapter mentions underlying issues that may influence students' struggles and how they can develop. This one really struck a chord with me because I was able to relate it to today's world, especially here. So they particularly speak about motivation, exposure, age, and personality, that all these factors have to do with the development of a child and how fast they learn their second language. Motivation kind of stuck out to me a little bit because it does explain in the chapter how if a child is around people who understand them in their first language, they're not willing or motivated to continue the second language because they're already understood and they're in an area or feel comfortable just speaking the first language. That kind of reminded me of Miami or Miami Dade in general, just because I think a lot of people don't have the motivation to learn English just because you can get, through day by day here just learning Spanish. So I think that was a perfect example for me, at least to relate it in today's world. Overall, I think the students, in order for these students to develop the second language faster, they need to be willing to participate and receive feedback. My son, when he was small, originally he spoke only Spanish. Um, Not because I only spoke Spanish, but because his daycare teachers only spoke Spanish, but we would teach him both languages. However, now since he's been in school, he's learned English a lot more, and that's what he feels more comfortable in speaking is English. And when he tries to speak Spanish now, he has a hard time. Also, because my mom tends to, maybe critique him or make fun of him when he says things incorrectly. So I think that will also prevent people from wanting to learn, is having people who criticize them instead of trying to help them. So that's just a personal side note on how I can relate to that. This week's reading also included several examples of scaffolding for ELL students. Scaffolding is a process in which teachers provide individual support as needed. I think all of the examples were interesting, and I believe that making a classroom more interactive, especially for ELL students who tend to be reserved, is important because that will allow them to feel more comfortable and more willing to participate. So though that is my reflection for week 6, I will be now commenting on somebody else's reflections. So hope to be, doing my next reflection soon. Thank you. Bye.